Hello, my name is Victoria Swaim, and this is my informational speech on how to bake a cake. I'm going to preface this video by saying I don't know how to edit videos very well, so the recipe that I'm going to be using will be put into the description below. Here are my note cards. There are 5 of them. A few of them do include quotes. Here's the first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth, the fifth, and the fifth does include a simplified recipe as well. Okay, I'm going to begin now. Cake is a major part of many events, such as birthdays, weddings, and maybe even a small treat after a long day. With a simple recipe, anybody can learn how to bake a cake. And while millions of people enjoy eating cake, hardly any of them know how to bake one themselves. I've been baking from a very young age, and the recipe that I'm going to be using today is from the Better Homes and Gardens cookbook. Better Homes and Gardens has been around for over 75 years, and I have used this recipe in the past myself. Important information that somebody who would like to learn how to bake a cake should know are the different kinds of cakes that there are, the difference between store-bought cakes and homemade cakes, and a simple recipe for baking a cake. The first thing that anybody who wants to learn how to bake a cake should know are the different kinds of cakes that there are to choose from. Because there are so many options, it allows the person who is baking to choose what they might enjoy the most to eat. According to Country Living, and this is a quote, there are two main types of cake: butter, also known as a shortened cake, and foam. And then within each category, there are many varieties. The primary difference between the two cakes is fat content. Shortened cakes have either butter, oil, or shortening in them. A classic yellow cake is a perfect example. Foam cakes have little to no fat and typically involve whipped eggs, either white, yolks, or both, which make them lighter and airier. Because of this, there's a variety of different cakes that there are to choose from. This might include plain cakes, a variety of fruity cakes, or even nutty cakes. It really depends on the preference of who is going to eat the cake, on what type of cake that you choose to make. The second thing that somebody who is wanting to learn how to make a cake should know is the difference between store-bought cakes and homemade cakes. By understanding the differences between them, it allows the baker to decide which option is best when choosing a cake. When baking at home, you have the ability to tailor the cake to what your preferences are and who is going to be eating it, which allows the cake usually to taste a bit better. This is a quote from John from Quora. When I bake for me and my friends. So I rig the recipe to what the target audience likes. When the target audience is thousands or millions of people, what they like is a tough target. So you tend to aim for what they don't dislike. In this quote, John is going over his personal baking experience versus what a food manufacturer might decide on when making baked goods. This personalization of your baked goods usually allows them to target all the preferences of the audience that is going to be consuming the cake, compared to a manufacturer which is going for a more broad cake taste. And while this is usually a good decision for food items, it's not always the best choice, because when you might not know all the preferences of your audience, such as when you're having a party and you're feeding a lot of people, the better option might be to go with a store-bought cake, which is more generalized and more people are more likely to like it. The final thing that somebody who wants to learn how to bake a cake should know are the simple steps for baking a cake. By allowing the baker to practice these steps, it allows them to know how to bake future cakes that they might want to do. Because most cakes are typically the same in their steps for baking. A good idea for baking a cake would be to find a recipe online and to follow it exactly. Because baking is a science, and when you deviate from that recipe, you can tend to get something different or might even mess up the cake itself. The recipe that I'm going to be going over today is a recipe from the Better Homes and Gardens cookbook, which I do have right here. It's a simple chocolate cake recipe that I've made in the past, and it's quite good. So when making a cake like this, there are basic ingredients that you would use. For this cake, the ingredients that you would use are milk, eggs, sugar, baking soda, baking powder, salt, cocoa powder, flour, vanilla, and butter. The first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to preheat your oven. After preheating your oven, you're going to want to get a baking dish and a stick of butter, and you're going to want to grease the pan so that when you pour the batter in, it doesn't stick to the pan. After this, you're going to grab a mixing bowl and you're going to mix in the dry ingredients together. Dry ingredients would include the baking soda and baking powder, the salt, the cocoa powder, and the flour. You're going to want to make sure that these are fully incorporated before moving on to the next step. In a electric mixer, you're going to mix together the wet ingredients. This would include the milk, eggs, sugar, vanilla, and butter. You're going to want to make sure that these two are separate at the beginning, but once they're both incorporated separately, you're going to mix them together in the mixer slowly. After this, you're going to pour them into the baking pan and put it in the oven to bake for about 30 to 40 minutes. From that ending 10-minute time frame, you're going to want to check on your cake to make sure that it's baked fully. To do this, you're going to take a toothpick and poke it into the center. If it comes out clean, then it's done. If it comes out dirty, then it's not. You're going to keep doing this until it comes out clean. You're going to then take out the cake from the oven and you're going to let it cool. Once it's fully cool, then you can add your toppings. This could be stuff like frosting or jellies or fruits or candies. After you add your frostings, the cake is ready to eat. In conclusion, this basic information can help anybody who wants to learn how to bake a cake. With a simple recipe, anybody can learn how to bake a cake. Knowing the differences between cakes that are homemade or store-bought, and the different types of cakes, and even the simple recipe, matter greatly when learning how to bake a cake. While it may be easy to buy a cake from the store, the experience of baking one at home is completely different. That's the end of my speech. Thank you.